Prepare for a Rood Awakening.
For yourselves know perfectly that the day of the Lord, the millennium of the Lord, as it's also considered all through the Hebrew Scriptures, that the day of the Lord so comes as a thief in the night. Whenever you have the word as in the English language in the Bible, used as a conjunction, you have a figure of speech. The figure of speech is called simile. In other words, there are similarities that can be drawn from the day of the Lord coming to how a thief in the night comes. And here we have one of these Feast of the Lord, or the Moedim, the oracles which are embedded in the culture of the Hebrew people, the Jewish people. And that each night, up on the Temple Mount, you have a priest, and his job is to make sure that the coals stay lit and the fire stays going underneath the altar all night long, so that in the morning, at the hour of the morning oblation, that the altar is prepared and ready to go for the morning oblation. And if that priest, during the night, crawls over into a corner and falls asleep, the high priest, many times, the Kohen Gadol, would go up onto the high priest, and he would take one of the fire pans over to the altar and scoop up some nice red hot coals and stoke it up and shake it out and get it nice and hot, and he would go over to where that priest is laying on the ground and then very gently put it on his garments all the way around him. And as that priest then would go even deeper into sleep, because he's nicely being warmed by these coals, then he is abruptly awakened as his clothes burst into flames, and he is immediately exposed in more ways than one in that he was not doing his job. In other words, the high priest came up as a thief in the night, and it was exposed that he was not doing his job as he was left to do it. We also have a picture that the Messiah gave us in that very same picture, because every time the figure of speech is used as the day of the Lord or the Lord coming as a thief in the night, he always comes to slothful, wicked, drunken servants who are not doing what they're told to do. And we don't want to be in that category. We want to be in the category when the high priest comes, is that we are attending to the job he has given us, and then he comes up when we're doing our job and sits down in the warmth of the fire, and we then fellowship together because we're obedient to what he has told us to do. We should never, ever identify with the Lord or the day of the Lord coming as a thief in the night to us. For when they shall say, peace and safety, then sudden destruction comes upon them as travail upon a woman with child. Now, do you want to be in that category of they and them upon whom sudden destruction comes? No, this isn't church. You can go ahead and answer. No, we don't want to be in that category of they or them upon whom that day comes. And it says, as travail upon a woman with child. Now, let me ask you again. We have the word as, and is the figure of speech simile. And when we have that simile, we see that when does travail come upon a woman with child? 3 weeks after she becomes pregnant? No, when the fullness of time comes, when the labor pains begin, whether she is ready or not makes no difference at all. That baby is coming when those labor pains begin. So if you are not prepared for what's about to happen, you are going to be in the pains of labor. You are going to need a labor coach because you have no idea and you have not prepared one bit. We don't want to be in that position that the entire world is going to be in a very short amount of time, in which that day comes upon them like a thief, absolutely unaware, because the times and the Moedim have already been changed by the Antichrist religious system and the government in which we now conduct all of our business. The times and the seasons have been wiped from our consciousness, and that day is going to come upon the world, and the labor pains are going to begin, and you have got to be aware, because the world is going to need a labor coach. They are going to need to know their Lord, their Messiah, and that's your job. That's why you're being called out in this day and time, because he wants you to know. It's always disappointing to see the number of people that come out, but we are never disappointed in who comes out, because God has called his people out, And while the rest of the world is sound asleep, his people get ready for the things that must come to pass. In the Gospel of John, John says that I have not written everything that should be written or could be written. The world wouldn't even be able to contain the scrolls of the things that should be written about the Messiah. But, he says, these things I have written that you might know that Yahshua of Nazareth is the Messiah, the only begotten Son of God, and that believing you might have life through his name. Now, once in a while, I'll just, by nature, I'll use the Hebrew names. And so, when I say Yahshua, I'm speaking of Jesus, as you have grown up and are familiar with his name here in the West. But I'll use the name that Gabriel the angel told his mother Miriam to call him, as their names are in Hebrew as well. And so we all know who we're speaking of here, so there's no conflict or no problem with that. See, my name is Michael in Hebrew. It's Michael in Russian. It's Miguel in Spanish and Michel in French. It's all the same name, and Michael in English. But there's just a little bit of different pronunciation, depends on what part of the world that you're from. And of course, when you travel the world and you're with the British, you do have to apologize for not speaking English. We all speak American very fluently, but the English language we seem to have slaughtered in a few cases. And so it is that we'll begin to look at the scriptures through a Hebrew perspective. And we see that John, in his gospel, says that I have written these things that you might know. Yahshua of Nazareth is the Messiah, the only begotten Son of God, that believing you might have life through his name. Now, how does Yohanan, John, show how Jesus of Nazareth, how does he prove that he's the Messiah to the first century Jewish believers to whom he is writing? He does it by showing how Jesus of Nazareth fulfills every detail of the spring feast of the Lord just as they had been rehearsed. Every year, year after year, century after century, in every detail to the very day, hour, and exact moment. That is what proves that he is the Messiah. Then, in the Revelation account, which I call the Gospel of Revelation, because those who love his coming, Revelation is good news. Bad news for the rest of the world. But it's a gospel, the gospel of the reigning king, and we see that Yohanan, John then details how the Messiah fulfills all of the fall feast of the Lord to the very day, the very hour, the exact moment, in every detail in which they've been rehearsed for thousands and thousands of years. The Gospel of Revelation really can't be understood from a Western Gentile perspective 2,000 years removed from the Feast of the Lord, because it is literally how the Jewish Messiah fulfills the fall feast of the Lord. And so it is that understanding that my job, the Messiah has given me, is to teach the prophetic fulfillment of the Feast of the Lord and to understand these things. So it is good to be with you tonight, because this is a real treat for me to be with so many Gentiles who are followers of the Jewish Messiah. See, for the first 15 years, from Pentecost until the household of Cornelius came to the faith, for the first 15 years, there were no Gentile believers at all. There were hundreds of thousands of Jewish believers, but no Gentiles at all for the first 15 years. And it's easy sometimes 2,000 years later to forget that fact, that it was the Jewish followers of the Messiah. And just as the book of the Acts of the Jewish Apostles indicates, and I did add the word Jewish apostles in there correctly, didn't I? All the apostles were Jewish. And it is there that it says that there was a great company of Kohanim who are obedient to the faith. The Kohanim, they are the priests that actually serve in the holy place. They were obedient to the faith, and it was the first century Jewish followers that took the good news of their Messiah out to the Gentiles and gave their lives in service, as the Apostle Paul and many others did. And here we are, 2,000 years later, just about 2,000 years later, and here we are, all one family, all next of kin by the blood of the Messiah. It worked. It worked. After all this time, we can look at it and say, hey, it worked. Now, we got some things to get cleaned up from, okay? There's a few things that kind of got added into the faith once delivered to the saints, and things, good things were stripped away from us, but that is what God promised would happen in the last days, and that's why we're here. Because it was Paul that wrote to the believers in Rome, and he said, what advantage then have the Jews? And he replied to that rhetorical question much in every way, but primarily because unto the Jews were committed the oracles of God. So of all the advantages there are that he could have enumerated, he said this is the primary thing, that unto the Jews, to Israel, were committed the oracles of God. What are these oracles that are so important? As it says in Hebrews, that at the time that you ought to be teachers, you have need that one again teach you the first principles of the oracles of God. What are these oracles that are so important that they are like the foundation of the foundation? As Peter said, if any man teach, if any man minister, if any man speak, let him speak as of the oracles of God. What are these oracles which are so foundational as far as understanding that we ought not to even be teaching until we have these things mastered? It was Stephen who, standing before the Sanhedrin, said, our fathers received the living oracles to give unto us. What are these living oracles? The word oracles sounds a little bit mystical, doesn't it, in our culture? The word oracles is the word logion in Greek, which means communication. And we see that God did, in fact, commit his communication, his revelation of himself to Israel and the 12 tribes of Israel, and they were to be priests to the entire world, to the whole planet. We see that Moses and all the prophets came to the 12 tribes of the Cherokee, the Aborigine, the Algonquin, and the Navajo. No. They came to the 12 tribes of Israel. They were to be priests and teachers to the entire world. The written word, the scriptures, were committed to their keeping, and there is still, to this very day, amidst all of the different versions and New Age versions of the English Bible, there still remains only one Hebrew text. And that Hebrew text still is in the same order that it was 3,500 years ago when Moses penned every word. There is an equidistant letter sequence in the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, in which in Genesis, every 50th letter, you go from the beginning, every 50th letter spells out over and over and over again, Torah, 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 which was translated law in the English. Exodus the same way, but Deuteronomy and Numbers, it spells Torah backwards, all pointing to the central book, which is Leviticus. And then every 7th letter, which is the number of God's perfection, it is Yod, He, Vav, He. Yahweh, the name of God, every 7 letters. And today, to this very day, that the Hebrew text still maintains the same equidistant letter sequence. This cannot be done by man and still make any sense of the text in which it is written. This is God's signature. It was committed to Israel, and they did a far better job than the Latins, the Greeks, or, obviously, the English have done in maintaining the purity of the Scriptures. And as Paul said to Timothy, from a child you have known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make one wise unto salvation. Now, when Paul wrote this to Timothy, was he referring to Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Acts, Romans, 1st and 2nd Corinthians? Didn't even exist. What existed was the Torah, the prophets, and the other writings. The Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and the other writings. The Torah is the basis. That is, Torah means the instructions from God. And he knew the Scriptures, the Torah, from a child. When he woke up in the morning, he was taught the Torah. When they sat at the table, taught the Torah. As they walked by the way and as they laid down to sleep, each night the Torah was taught to them, and they understood the Torah and memorized it from just a very young child. He went on to say that all Scripture is given by inspiration of God. It's profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect, truly furnished unto all good works. What Scripture is he speaking of? The Torah. It's all that existed at that time. Not to say that the New Testament Scriptures are not given by inspiration of God. I'm just saying that at the time it was written, this was the foundation of the first century believers. This is what they all understood.